Thomas Wolfe said many years ago, you can't go home again. Well, today we did it. I am back home. I am back where I was born and where I grew up and where I lived until I graduated from high school. I'm standing right now on the spot, the actual spot where I was born. And down here's the little barn where I milked many of a cow. Every morning before I went to school, I would go down there and feed the hogs, milk the cow, and do maybe a half day's work before my class in the morning, or it seemed that way. When I was a teenager and driving that 49 Ford, and it needed working on, and most of the time it did, I would pull it up under this big oak tree right here. That was my garage right there. And that's where we'd work on our cars, change the oil, whatever it needed, change tires. Usually had to change tires a lot. And these big trees here is where I played from the time I was big enough to crawl until I left home after graduating from high school. So I've played a many of a day right here. Down over that hill right there is where I rode my snow sleigh in the wintertime. We usually did that in the winter. We seldom rode it in the summer. It wouldn't slide. And every morning when I would leave home, I would walk up this little lane. I would walk up the hill to the main road. Then I'd walk about a mile down this way, over the hill and around the corner, around the bend, to Mount Zion Elementary School. The building was there until just a few years ago. And that's where we played softball and tried to keep from falling over the cliff. And most of us made it. Boy, this sure brings back memories. It's good to be back home.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you will, please welcome back home America's funniest professor, Dr. Carly Hurley.
Thank you. Well, thank you. That was great. This is a great crowd. This is the kind of crowd I like to talk to. I went out the other night to do an after-dinner speech, and I was sitting at the head table, and I looked out in the audience, and there were only about 3 people out there. I punched the fella next to me. He was the one that invited me. I said, you did tell him, didn't you, that I was coming? He said, no, but I'll find out who did. So I'm so glad you're here. Oh, they were a nice group. They were. They're going to have me back. They don't know that I know it. But I overheard them talking, and it's going to be one day next winter. Because one of them said it would be a cold day. Well, anyway, thank you. But I'm glad to be here with you tonight, and I was so thrilled earlier when someone came up to me there in the hall and noticed that I have lost weight. I have. I have. Since January the 16th, I've lost 30 pounds. And I know what you're thinking. You were thinking, boy, you were a whopper on the 16th, weren't you? Yes, I was. On the January the 16th, when I walked into the Weight Watchers office, I was leaving tracks a 1/4 inch deep in the sidewalk. I was wearing a striped shirt so you could tell if I was walking or rolling. I got up from the breakfast table one morning and I fell down and I was on my tummy. And I rocked myself to sleep trying to get up. So I knew something had to be done, so I walked in and I gave myself up. Well, actually, I didn't do that. They came after me. They put a bowl of biscuits and gravy on the front porch. When I ran out to get it, they nabbed me. Now I'm on a point system. I can eat anything I want. I'm on 28 to 33 points a day. Because every food's got a point assigned to it, so as long as I count my points, I'm okay. 28 to 33. Had them by 7:30 this morning. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's hard. But I'm hanging with it. It's a good program, and I'm going to stay in there. But you see, I have a problem. I'm surrounded by good cooks. My wife is a good cook. My mother-in-law lives right down the street from us. She's an excellent cook. My daughter's a good cook, lives right down the street. My mama, down in London, Kentucky, just ready to turn 82, is an excellent cook. Always has been. I go see her as often as I can. I never slip in on her. I'll call her about a day ahead. I say, Mama, I'm going to be down there tomorrow about noon. Now, don't you go cooking up a bunch of stuff now. And I can hear the black iron skillets rattling in the background, man. Well, but I am going to stick with the program. I've got a long way to go. I know that. But my wife, she is a real good cook, but let me tell you this. She was not always a good cook. No, I'm not being unkind. She would tell you this. We've been married 38 years. I know I don't look it. We have. And on the day we married, and this is no lie, she had never cooked a meal in her life. I did not gain a lot of weight that first year. But she's been a good cook for many, many years. But I'll never forget our first Thanksgiving. She came in from the backyard, her little brown eyes just snapping. Her hair was messed up. Her apron was hanging by one string. I could tell she was mad. I said, what's wrong? She said, that blamed turkey. Said, I got it picked and I got it stuffed. Now, if you'll kill it, I'll bake it. Oh. Man, I'm glad she learned. And she'll go with me on occasions when I'm out doing a presentation someplace. But because of something that happened several years ago when she was with me, I almost got out of the speech-making business. We were up in Washington, D.C., and I was speaking at the Watergate Hotel. And knowing the history of that institution, she looked over at me one evening right before we went to bed, and she said, you reckon this room is bugged? Well, that got my curiosity up. And I got up and looked under every lampshade, ashtray, everything in the room. I didn't see anything, but right over there in the middle of the floor was a little throw rug. I said, I'll bet there's something under that rug. And I ran over there and I kicked it back, and there was a little metal plate about that big around, had 2 screws in it. I said, I'll bet there's something under that plate. I got my screwdriver and I took those screws out and I looked. I didn't see anything. I just kicked the rug back over it. The next morning when we were checking out, the desk clerk said, how were the accommodations? I said, oh, just fine. He said, no problems? I said, none whatsoever. He said, well, I guess you heard about what happened to the people in the room right under you. I said, no, what? He said, a chandelier fell on them. Well, folks, we got to keep laughing. And we must be able to laugh at ourselves. You know, if you can't laugh at yourself, other people are laughing at you. They are. You might as well learn to laugh at yourself. I have to. I mess up so much. If I couldn't laugh at myself, I don't know what I would do. I almost showed up the other day in Jackson, Tennessee to do a program a year early. Well, my office sent me this agreement, said they want you in Jackson, Tennessee on April the 18th, and I was going to be in Bloomington, Illinois the 16th of April. I said, I won't have time to come home. I've got to go from Bloomington, Illinois down to Jackson, Tennessee. So when we finish in Bloomington, y'all have got to drop me back at the Indianapolis airport, and I've got to stay there, fly out the next morning, and go down to Memphis and rent a car and drive back to Jackson. And I knew I got everything lined up. Got my rental car, my room, and everything, and I was ready. But I said, I don't know where I'm going to be staying in Jackson. So somebody in my office called him, and they said, he needs to know where he's going to be staying. They said, tell him to look at his paperwork. It says April the 18th, 02. If I had known where I was staying, I'd have been there a year early looking for them. Where are they? I didn't want to admit that I made a mistake. I said, call them and tell them I just hate being late. But we all mess up. Here a while back, my wife went on a trip for about a week, and I was fixing my own breakfast. Now, I know how a microwave oven works. I have a degree in technology. I know how it works. But I guess I just wasn't thinking. Wanted to fix me an egg. Didn't want to fry it, you see. I'm on Weight Watchers. Let me give you a bit of advice. If you're going to cook an egg in a microwave, crack it first. I put that egg in there, shut that door and turned it on, and I turned around to put my toast in the toaster. About the time I stuck that bread in there, pow! Scared me to death. I looked around that door, it was just flopping. I went over there, and you couldn't stick your finger on any place inside that oven and not get egg on it. Then I said, oh yeah, that's how they work. And I shut the door, and I said, I'll clean that up after a while. 3 days later, my wife walked in. Now see, my sense of smell is not very good. But she should have been a bird dog. She can stand out here on the street right now and tell you if somebody's smoking downtown. Oh, she can. She came in the door. The first thing she did was went straight to the kitchen, walked over and opened the microwave door and said, oh, you tried to fix an egg, didn't you? She said, I am not cleaning this up. I said, well, I'm not cleaning it up either. And I didn't. I went straight downtown and bought her a new microwave oven. Yeah, well, I did. I knew that's what I had to do. Because out of the 38 years, I only got mad one time and told her off. And I really told her off good. I didn't see her for 2 weeks. After about 2 weeks, I got to where I could see her a little out of this left eye right here. But we just got to laugh at ourselves. When I first got into the speech-making business, go right ahead, that's why we're here. When I first got into the speech-making business, I got a call from IBM. They wanted me to come down to Orlando, Florida and speak. They were having a big dinner, and I was going to be the speaker. I was tickled to death. I got down there early. Got down there about noon. The Hyatt Grand Cypress Hotel. Fine place. Got a swimming hole out in the front yard like you wouldn't believe. And I wanted to go swimming, so I put my bathing suit on, and about the time I got it on, a woman who cleans the rooms came by. And I said, is there some way I can go from here out to the swimming pool and not go through the lobby of this fine hotel with my bathing suit on? And she told me how I could go the back way. Then I thought I'd say something funny. That's my nature, you know. I said, well, I would hate to go through the lobby of this hotel like this because people would see me and they'd think I'm Burt Reynolds. She wheeled around. Now, what bothered me was she didn't even have to think about it. She said, "Don't you mean Boss Hogg?" Well, I looked in the mirror, and in my bathing suit, I look more like Boss Hogg than I do Burt Reynolds. But you might as well laugh about it. Laughter is good for us. We know that now through medical research. We've always known that a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Now we know how it works through medical research. We know it lowers your blood pressure. It boosts your immune system. It lowers your stress level. We really need it. It helps us adjust to change in our lives. And we do have it, don't we? I have seen so much change in this world since I've been here. And I was born, before television, FM radio, credit cards, pizza, designer jeans, yogurt. I don't care about the yogurt. You can't tell when that stuff goes bad. Yes, I have seen a lot of change. I grew up at East Bernstadt, Kentucky. That's my hometown. East Bernstadt, Route 1. That's where I grew up. Now, that's not where I was born. I was born at a little place called Cornett, Kentucky. But I got to be a pretty good-sized kid. They did away with Cornett. One night, the little post office at Cornett went out of business, and we woke up the next morning at East Bernstadt, Route 1. My sister said, "Do we live in town now?" No, we still way out in the country. But we wanted our little town to change. We wanted Cornett to change. We wanted to get some nice things like other people. And I can remember one time everybody in the community meeting down at the schoolhouse for 3 or 4 nights in a row to discuss a new project. They wanted to get a traffic light. Somebody had been to Cincinnati and they'd seen one. And they met down there and discussed it for 2 or 3 nights. They discussed what color to make it. They were just getting ready to put it to a vote, and an old boy stood up. He said, "This is not going to work." They said, "Why?" He said, "We don't have an intersection." And we didn't. It was a long strip of gravel road and a little post office that had gone out of business. And I have seen a lot of change since those days. When I was a little kid, my mama would step to the back door and holler, "Supper." We'd all run in and get around this big table. When my kids were little, my wife would step to the back door and holler, "Supper." Kids would run get in the station wagon. They wanted a Happy Meal or something. We were happy to have a meal. Yes, times have changed. But now, Eastern Kentucky, where I'm from, we have everything now. We have everything everybody else has. We have fine roads now. We didn't always have those. I remember one time I was a teenager coming down this dirt road out of the hills. There was a mud hole there, a big mud hole right in the middle of the road. This fellow was right in the middle of it, up to about his shoulders. He was hollering, "Help me, help." I said, "I'll get something to you as fast as I can." I said, "It looks like you're in real trouble." He said, "Buddy, it's worse than it looks. I'm still on my horse." So we've had a lot of change. Things are better now. But I have changed a lot myself. I know I have. I've noticed it a lot lately. I'm getting more and more like a fella I heard about the other day. I'll tell you what happened. Young man and woman moved into a neighborhood, and there was an elderly couple living next door. Now, you see, that has changed. What used to be elderly isn't elderly anymore, and I'm so glad it isn't. But the young man said to his wife, he said, "They seem like nice people." He said, "Let's invite them over for dinner some evening, get to know them a little better." So they did, and they had a nice dinner. After dinner, the 2 men walked out on the patio and sat down, and the women were still doing something in the kitchen for a few minutes, and the young man said, "I want to ask you a question." He said, "What is it?" He said, "How long have you all been married?" He said, "Son, We've been married for over 50 years. The young man said, well, I think that is so nice that you've been married that long, yet all through dinner. I noticed you called her honey, sweetie, sugar. He said, son, let me tell you something. He said, I still love her, but I forgot her name 10 years ago. So I relate to that more and more, but we have had a lot of change back home. Technology has made its way into my hometown now, back there at East Bernstadt Route 1. I was up there the other day at the store, and there's two old boys sitting there talking. One of them said, I just down at the sheriff's office, so they got a machine down there now that can tell you right when a man is lying. The other one said, that's nothing, I married one of them. But we do have everything that everybody else has. We have cell phones. Somebody left one down at the store the other day. Not everybody has them, you see. There's an old boy sitting there, feed sack, and somebody left one there on a sack beside him. And it rang, and he looked down at it. I was watching it. He looked at it. He picked it up. It rang again. He punched the button. Said, hello? Yeah? Yeah, I'm down here at the store. Yeah. Oh, go ahead and get it. Yeah. Oh, I said we couldn't afford it. We need a new living room, so go ahead and get it. Yeah. And yeah, get the big TV. Yeah, I love big screen TVs. Yeah. Go. We can do it. Okay. I love you too. Anybody know whose phone this is? So things have changed. But as times change more and more, and our frames of reference become more and more different, it gets harder and harder to communicate. And in this world, we need better communications, do we not? We really do. So, you know, you and I can communicate right now only to the extent that we've had similar experiences. When we've been different places and seen different things, we think differently. You ever think about that? We do. Now, laughter is a bridge builder. If we've never met and we come together and we laugh together for about 30 minutes, we start feeling a closeness to each other. A little bonding is taking place. We feel like we understand each other a little better because we're laughing together. Laughter is a bridge builder. When you're communicating with someone else, 6 things can be happening. One is what you said, what you think you said, what the other person thinks you said, what you think they say back to you, what they actually say back to you, and what you think they say back to you, or whatever. I lost track 3 of them back, but there's 6 of them. Now, if all 6 are operating, you are not communicating at all. That's uncommon for all 6 to be operating. It's not uncommon for 1 or 2 to operate. First thing I learned about communication, I learned when I got to Eastern, straight out of high school. I was in college 1 week, and I learned something about communications. Now, remember, I came off the banks of the Rockcastle River. I had come from one culture, and I entered another one instantly. One of my professors said one day, Hurley, I want you to help me do something. I said, I wouldn't care to. He said, well, I'll get somebody else. I said I wouldn't care to. He said, that's what I thought you said. I'll get somebody else. Then I said, I don't mind helping you. Then he looked funny. I guess on the banks of the Rockcastle, we say it wrong. But we all say it the same way, and it's not a problem. So we do have trouble sometimes communicating when we've had different experiences. My dad was one of the funniest people I've ever known. He mispronounced a lot of words, and if he didn't do that, he would substitute a word a lot that sounded like the real word. He went out one day and bought himself a Charolais bull. And I was home from college on Sunday. We were having Sunday dinner. That's the noon meal. Dinner is noontime up there. And he'd been sitting there bragging on that bull for 15 minutes. We were going to go see it after dinner. Finally, I said, Dad, what kind of bull is it? He said, I don't know, but the fellow I got it from said it's a Chevrolet. Just a little bit of a communication problem. Now, don't for 1 minute think I'm putting down people back home. I do not do that. I'm an Eastern Kentuckian, and I do not put down Eastern Kentucky. I'll tell you about us. See, when I was growing up back there, a lot of people didn't have an opportunity to get a formal education, but it didn't mean they weren't smart. It didn't mean that they didn't have a lot of innate ability. I knew an old boy back there that was a great portrait painter. He didn't have an opportunity to go to school, but he had natural ability, and he used it, and he practiced, and he was good, and had quite a reputation. Lived in a little cabin way out on the road there from town. One day, this woman pulled up out there in a big limousine, stepped out. You could tell she was of money, as we say. That old boy went out. She said to him, "Are you the portrait painter?" He said, "Yeah, that's what I do." She said, "Well, I want you to paint my portrait." He said, "Okay." She said, "Now, there's one stipulation. I want you to paint it in the nude." He said, "Well, I don't know about that." He said, "Now, I've never done anything like that." She said, "Now, money's no object. I'll give you $10,000. He said, "That does shed more light on the situation." But said, "I want to ask my wife. If it's okay with my wife, I'll do it." But she's not here now. She'll be back late tonight. If you come back in the morning, I'll let you know. Next morning, she pulled back in there. He went out. She said, "Well, what did your wife say?" He said, "Well, she said I could. But you're going to have to let me leave my socks on so I'll have a place to wipe my brushes." Just a little communication problem. They were thinking differently. I love true stories about real people. This happened in Western Kentucky some years back. And there's not one word of embellishment in it. It's exactly the way it happened. Man and woman, been farmers there for years in this Western Kentucky area. They got in their pickup one morning and drove into town, went to the bank. They wanted to talk to the banker. They wanted to borrow some money. The banker said, "Come into my office and let's talk." He said, "What do you need the money for?" They said, "Well, the kids are up and grown now, and they've moved off, and we're getting up in years. And we think it's time to put a bathroom in the house." Never had one in the house. And he said, "Okay." In his conversation with them, he learned that they did not have an account at his bank. If he had phrased his question differently, he would have gotten a different answer. But he looked right at the man and said, "Where have you been doing your business?" And the man told him. If he had simply said banking business, he would have gotten totally a different answer. Well, I know something that happened just right here recently. Beautiful little church where I go to church, beautiful little church, beautiful stone building, beautiful stained glass windows, trees all around, and it's so pretty that a lot of people like to come there and get married. Well, here a while back, there was a young man and woman. They came in and talked to the minister, want to get married there tomorrow. And he said, "Okay." He said, "Would you like the modern, contemporary service, or would you like a more traditional service?" They said, "Oh, we want the modern service." He started to tell them about it. They said, "Just do it." He said, "We've got 1,000 things to do before tomorrow. Just do it." And they took off. The next day, it was raining cats and dogs. The groom got there a little late. He had his tux on and everything. It was just pouring out. He had his umbrella, but he was going to have to run through these puddles of water to the church. So he pulled up his pant legs. He had his big long black socks on, He stuffed the bottom of his pant legs in the top of his socks, keep them from getting wet. Looked like he had on knickers. And he took off, and he got in there, and he threw his umbrella in the corner. He looked up the aisle there, and the other preacher was already up there. The best man was standing there. In his excitement, he forgot about his pants. And he ran up there, and he got by the best man. The preacher leaned over and said, "Pull your pants down." He said, "Pardon me?" He said, pull your pants down. He said, oh, we'll take the regular service. Well, like I say, I like real stories about real people. But I was down at East Bernstadt the other day, and an old boy told me this one, and all I'm going to do with it is pass it on to you, because I can't vouch for him. Don't even trust him. But I'll pass on to you what he said. It does have to do with communication. He said there was a man and woman down there. They were celebrating, getting ready to celebrate their 60th birthday. Now, they'd been married for some years. And they were born on the same day, so all through their married life, they'd been able to celebrate their birthdays together. Number 60 was coming up. They're well thought of in the community, said. The neighbors said, you know, wouldn't it be nice if we'd all have a potluck or something and help them celebrate and go down there at the Civic Center? So that's what they did. So on that day, this man and woman, they were sitting here at this little table, a little pot of flowers on the table, and they were watching their friends, you know, have a good time. And said, a little genie popped out. That's where I started doubting him. Popped out of those flowers and said to the man and woman, said, this is your 60th birthday. You've been good people. You're good neighbors. Going to give you one wish apiece for your birthday. Said, what would you like to have? The woman said, I've always wanted to take a trip around the world. Poof. She had tickets in her hand. Asked the man, said, what would you like? He leaned back in his chair, had kind of a smug look on his face. He said, I'd like to have a woman 30 years younger than me. Poof, he was 90 years old. So you can't be too careful when you're communicating. And you need to be explicit. My wife has that problem. Now, she's sharp as a tack. She got her doctor's degree in social and philosophical studies. She's a professor here at Transylvania. You know, she ponders something awful. Philosophers ponder. They do. I think, but she ponders. It's much deeper than thinking. I mean, she reads hardback books and everything. She does. She's sharp. And she ponders on things like, where did we come from? Where are we going? The meaning of life. And I'm thinking, how'd they get that white stuff on the inside of Twinkies? That's more a puzzlement to me, you see. But she would, you know, she has a little problem with communication because she's not explicit at times, and you've got to be explicit. We were at the grocery store the other night, and she was digging through this bin of frozen chickens. They never seemed to have her size. She was standing there holding about a 2.5 pounder, and she was wanting a 3 pounder. About that time, the stock boy came by and she held it up. She said, son, do these get any bigger? No, ma'am, they're dead. Never. No, I'm not putting her down. She's a good person. She's a good person. Of all the 38 years we've been married, though, she does something the same way all the time. It never varies. We get ready to go someplace, and she gets all ready except her shoes. And she will come to me, and she'll hold up 2 pairs of shoes. You couldn't tell them apart with a microscope, you know. They look just alike to me. She'd say, which would you wear? I'd say, neither one. I don't look good in heels. Oh, now which one? One of each. I don't care. Then she heard the other day that I told them down at the store that I had eaten so many TV dinners that every time I see aluminum foil, my mouth waters. She told them, she said, I love to live in the fast lane, but I'm married to a speed bump. So she gets even. But anyway, I have become interested recently in the most powerful way we communicate, you and I, how we communicate without words. 65%, they say. 65% of what we say to another person, we say without words. Isn't that interesting? And we send conflicting messages a lot. Yes, we send one verbally and one non-verbally, and if you have to decide which to believe, you will always believe the non-verbal. Always, not just some of the time. You have 700,000 different movements you make with the muscles in your face alone, and each and every one says something different to somebody else. Doesn't that give you a different feeling? It doesn't it? Yeah, we do send conflicting messages. If I'd have walked out here tonight and if I'd have said, I really feel good tonight. I don't know when I felt this good. I just love doing this. If I'd have done it that way, you would have walked out of here, if you'd have believed me, and you would have said, man, he felt rough tonight, didn't he? Because you would have believed the nonverbal. I learned how it worked a few years back. I was speaking in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was speaking to a group of teachers making a speech there. Now, when I do those speeches, like for teachers, I put on my speech-making uniform. It's a dark blue or dark gray suit, a light blue shirt or a white shirt with a red tie. That's speaker's uniform. But when I travel, I like to look sharp. And I got a pair of yellow breeches you can see for a while. And a big green slip-on shirt that feels good. I can move around in there and it doesn't hurt any place. And I look good in that outfit because when I walk through airports, people just whisper. And I know I look good in it. And it makes me feel good. So I finished that speech, and I put my speech-making suit in its sack, and I put on my traveling outfit. I went out to Minneapolis Airport, turned in a rental car, went to get on the plane, and I realized I had left something on the seat of that car. Went back to get it. Fella said, I took the car out to the lot. If you'll wait right here, I'll go get your thing, whatever it is. I was standing on the curb there, directly in front of the National Rental Car place, whose colors were just like my shirt. Next door was Hertz, whose colors were just like my pants. I was sending out such a powerful message, but I didn't know it. This woman walked up. Never occurred to her that I didn't work there. She said, I want number 18. I said, honey, you go out there and get you one before they get picked over. She looked kind of funny and went on. About that time, an old boy pulled up there in a panel truck, stuck his head out and said, can I park here a minute? I said, sure, get out, get out. Welcome to Minneapolis. And I took off. And I sat there on that plane thinking, I hope they didn't tow his truck. But I just love to be nice to people. So there is power, you see, in nonverbal communication. There really is. Well, we got to keep laughing. Got to. And that's why I go back home as often as I can. That's why I go back to the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in southeastern Kentucky, where I'm from, in search of humor. Because, brother, we had it when I was growing up back then. We didn't have much else. But we had humor. We knew how to make do. You know, that's what they're good people. Good, solid people. They work hard, and they can make do, as we said. And we survived years ago. Hard times. We survived, I think, because of a few things we didn't have. We didn't have cholesterol. No, we never had it. I'm glad we didn't. If we'd have had it, my mama would have fried it. She'd have made gravy and big old cat head biscuits. I tell you something else we didn't have, and I'm thankful for it. We never had wind chill factor. They came out with that when I was in high school. I hated it. Used to, they say gonna be 32 degrees, it'd be 32 degrees. Now they say it's 32 degrees, you step out and freeze yourself to death. So the wind chill factor is 40 below. But they were survivors. They knew how to make do. I knew an old boy that walked about 10 miles one morning into town that went to the insurance office. Said he wanted to buy him some fire insurance. They said, we don't have any fire insurance, they'd sell you some flood insurance. He said, no, don't reckon I know how to start a flood. Well, there was a woman came in there one Saturday there in town, wanted to see the judge, and she went in and talked to him. He said, what can I do for you? She said, I want to get my man out of jail. He said, what's he in for? She said, he's in for stealing a ham. He said, well, I guess you need to get him back out to go to work. She said, no, he never worked a day in his life. So, well, I guess he's good to you and the kids. No, he's not good to us. Well, why do you want him out of jail? She said, we're out of ham. Now, most of the people back there are hard workers. Now, we had one or two when I was growing up that didn't work that much. They were a personality type, you know, that didn't work much. We have all three personality types. Most people know about A and B, but we had C back home. A, that's you people that are geared up real fast, aren't they? They stand in front of a microwave saying, come on. They're upset because the car wash doesn't have a passing lane, you know. That's your type A. Now your type B is more like me. We'll do it tomorrow. Or we don't have to do it at all. But back home, we had a type C that went beyond that. Only way I know how to explain it is tell you what happened one day. There's two of them sitting out there under a shade tree, just leaned up against a shade tree. One was facing the road, one kind of had his back to the road. A few minutes, there was a young lady walking down the road. She said, howdy. The boy said, howdy. About an hour later, the one that had his back to the road said, clown. He said, what? He said, was she pretty? She said, yeah. He said, boy, wish I'd have been turned that way. So we have a few like that. So I go back home as often as I can, searching for the humor that we had when I was back there. They do funny things back home. Last time I was down there, now well-meaning people went out by the interstate and put up a sign that says, learn to read. I drive by there and I look at that and I wonder, who did they write that for? But they're good people, they think differently. I have a friend that has the most beautiful lake house down there that you've ever seen on Wood Creek Lake. It's beautiful. It's all pine and glass. About 3 different walls. You look out the glass this way and you see the lake, you see the cliffs out this side, and it's gorgeous. My uncle built it. And when they were building it, I had a first cousin was standing right there in the middle of the floor watching them put in this trough around above all this glass to hold 42 lights, indirect lighting. He said, well, it's good that you're putting these lights in here that way, a lot of them, because these windows are going to let in a whole lot of dark. And you know what worries me about that? It almost makes sense. That's scary. But they're good people. They'll work with you. I went in the store one day up there. I was a big old boy, about 18, 19 years old. I was about to get out of the 8th grade. And I'd done some trading out the store, and we called it trading in those days because we did a lot of trading. We'd take something and trade it for something else, and I'd had a pretty good day. But see, the people will work with you. I was starting back home, and I had me a brand new number 2 wash tub. I had 2 or 3 chickens, a little old pig. I'd had a pretty good day. Started walking along there. This young lady that I know, she needed to walk up the holler there too. She said she'd walk up that holler with me, but she didn't know if she wanted to or not. And I said, why? She said, we might get up here. She said, it's getting kind of dark, and you might try to kiss me. I said, how could I do that with this number 2 wash tub, this chicken, this pig? She said, you can put those chickens on that tub, and I can hold that little pig. So, but I'm not making fun. I don't put my people down. They're good people. They really are. I'll tell you something that happened, though, recently. And like I said, I like real stories about real people. This happened recently. A friend of mine, 2 of them, they have a little restaurant. And at night, a woman comes in and cleans for them. She puts the tables up on the chairs up on the table. She sweeps out and she mops, and while they're counting the money and so forth. Now, I don't want to be unkind here, and I'll say it this way. The woman needed dental work badly. Oh, yeah. Real bad. One night she came to work, and she had the finest set of teeth. Looked great. Now, the fellows didn't want to say anything because it might sound like they had noticed how badly she needed them. So they didn't say anything for a while, but she said to them, how do you like my teeth? And they said, they're beautiful. They said, where did you get those teeth? She said, they was Mama's. Her mama had passed on a few weeks before. She had all of her teeth pulled, and she had her mama's teeth. They said, well, isn't it great that your gum structure and the size and everything is such that they fit so nicely? She said they didn't at first, but I put them in the microwave and I heated them up. And I pressed them in there and made them fit. She said, I wanted the lowers, but my sister got them. Said she wanted something that was Mama's too. And I've said this before, and I will say it again. You cannot make up anything any funnier than what actually happens. When people ask me, where do you get your humor? It's from what people do and what they say. And that's why I go back home, to find that and gather those stories so I can pass them on to you. I was down there the other day. Hadn't been in the store 15 minutes, so they had to start telling me about what happened there recently. They said an old boy that comes in there about every morning, drives his pickup in there, and they have a coffee pot there in the back, you know, and they make him a cup of coffee. And they sit around on those feed sacks and talk. Came in there and he had a for sale sign in his pickup. They said, you going to sell your truck? Yep, going to sell it. Well, he'd been driving that truck in there about another month, and he still had the for sale sign in it. They said, well, your truck's not selling very fast. He said, no, it's not. One of them said, how many miles does it have on it? He said, it's got 140,000. They said, well, no wonder it's not selling. Nobody's going to give you anything for a pickup truck that's got 140,000 miles on it. One of them said, tell you what you got to do. He said, I'll tell you how to do it. You got to roll back that odometer. You got to roll those miles back. He took off. About a week later, he was back in there, still driving that truck. For sale sign was gone. You're getting ahead of me. Yeah, they said, you're not going to sell your truck? He said, well, no, it just got 20,000 miles on it. Well, I wouldn't sell it either. But I go back there looking for the comedy, and I find it among all ages. I find it, you know, no matter what age people, what age you are, you have comedy. Even the little kids. I love the innocent humor of little children. I was talking to a lady the other day from Hazard, and she says she's a first grade teacher. And so her little first graders came in, and one of them was all excited. She said, my daddy started school this morning. He went to that big school over on the hill. And she knew it was the vocational school. She said, oh, what's he taking? She said, this morning he took a Pepsi and a bologna sandwich. I love it. Just like when the little kids ran in and said, Grandpa, Grandpa, make a noise like a frog. He said, what? They said, make a noise like a frog. Grandma said you could. He said, what did she say? They said, we heard her tell a woman out at the grocery that when you croak, she's going to Florida. So there's humor all around us. There is another thing that humor does for us. There's another thing. I think it makes us more optimistic. I really do. I think if you laugh a lot, you're more optimistic. I believe you're happier and you see the future more positively. A few years ago, a friend of mine by the name of Alan Loy McGinnis wrote a book. He's a psychologist out in California. He wrote a book called The Power of Optimism. He sent me a copy of it, and I really liked it. He doesn't say that optimists are not, they're not people that are running around saying it's a wonderful day every day is wonderful, it's just a perfect day every day. No, see, those are crazy people. Those are not optimists. Those are crazy. He says an optimistic person sees himself or herself as a problem solver. And that's the way I like it. And we are. And we can handle it. And I like that I am optimistic and I am a problem solver, and you are too. When you look to see the problems we've already solved, big ones to go, but we've solved so many. Reminds me about two fellows were hunting up there in Laurel County where I'm from one time, and they're going across this big field. This was years ago. Said they heard something coming, and they looked around. Here came this big bull just charging right after them. They threw their guns down and they started running as fast as they could. Just had one big tree right in the middle of the field. Lowest limb looked to be 10 feet high, but it wasn't quite that high. So they jumped for it and they caught it. One of them did. Pulled himself up. The other one went in a big hole right at the base of the tree, right on his head. The bull went by, just barely missed him. He came out of the hole, started jumping for the limb too. The bull turned around, came back. He had to go back in the hole. Bull just barely missed him again. He did that 2 or 3 times, and finally he caught the limb and he pulled himself up. The other one said, you crazy thing. Why did you keep risking your life? Why didn't you stay in the hole where you were safe? He said, there's a bear in the hole. He understood. He understood the problem a little better because he had more information. But we are problem solvers, and like I said earlier, I like real stories about real people. And I know of something that happened during the Depression right here in Kentucky that illustrates that, the problem-solving ability of people. Captain, Kentucky. Now remember, this was during the Depression. It was way before interstates, of course. Things were hard. Times were tough. And some fellows went up to Dayton, Ohio, and found work. And they had 2 old boys, kinfolks, that wanted to go visit them. If you think this story didn't happen, I can give you names of people that can vouch for it. It happened. They wanted to go visit them. They didn't have bus money. Not many people did in those days. They had an old car. It's probably a T model. Didn't have an engine in it. And they got to wondering how far they could get. If they'd push that car out of the road, tie a rope on the bumper, and get people to pull them. Now they pushed it out there, put the rope on the bumper, somebody came along and pulled them into town. They pushed it through town, got to the edge of town, somebody came along and pulled them to the next town. They went all the way from Campton, Kentucky. I don't know how many, it's probably a couple of 100 miles. All the way to Dayton, Ohio, visited kinfolks, stayed a week, and came home in a car with no engine. So don't tell me that we're not problem solvers. And humor helps. Well, I'm going back home next week after next, to see some of the good old boys I grew up with. See my cousin Eldine, his wife Eula Faye. There's a pair. Fight all the time. It's just kind of the way they get along. They just fight all the time. Traveling salesman stopped down at the store the other day. Said he'd just been by their house. Said as he approached the door, he could hear them in there squalling, hollering, dishes breaking. Said he rang the doorbell, ding dong. A few minutes, Eldine stuck his head out and said, can I help you? He said, I would like to speak to the head of the house. He said, buddy, if you can hang around a few minutes, we're trying to decide who that is right now. But they're not going to get a divorce. They're going to stay together. They've been together for years. Oh, one time they thought they might get a divorce, and they sat down at the kitchen table, figured out what it would cost, decided just to have the kitchen redone. They still fight like cats and dogs, but boy, they got a nice kitchen. And while I'm there, while I'm back home, I'll go see Uncle Arlo and Aunt Mavis. I always do that. Now, they don't fight. When he gets mad at her, he just pouts. He'll go out on the front porch and just sit there and pout. She said the other night he was sitting up there pouting. So she went out and tried to talk to him. She talked, said a few things, and he just kind of grunted. She just gave up. They'd been sitting there about 15 minutes, just quiet. He looked around at her. He said, when I pass on, I want you to go down the road here to Fred's. You know, Fred's single. I want you to marry Fred. She said, now that's silly. You've always hated Fred. He said, still do. Well, folks, I want to thank you, folks, for going back home with me tonight one more time. And I want to leave you with this, because I do believe it's the truth. People will forget what you say, but people will never forget how you made them feel. You made me feel good tonight. I hope I made you feel good. If I did, it worked the way it's supposed to. Thank y'all so much. Thank you. Thank you. Woo, doggy. Well, I don't know about you, but I just got off work. So what I want to do now is to give you an invitation to come and sit on my front porch with me. We have plenty of chairs. We can sit on the steps. We'll bring in more chairs if we need to. So come back and be with me and enjoy this beauty. We'll fix a little something to eat. Hey, if you all come at once, though, call ahead.